So that was our basic light. I'm just gonna lock it and hide it for now. Then bring in another light layer. This time we're gonna go for spotlight. Again, we have the same color, intensity, and all that, but now we have something called cone angle and cone feather. So a spotlight is shooting light from a source, but it's through a cone. So it will not be as direct as point light. It's a little bit more complicated. And most times we're just working with how the cone is set on our object. I'm gonna go with 90% and 50 for a feather, the default options. Now you can see that the shape is completely different compared to our point light. Instead of that star shape that we had, we now have a more complicated shape. So this is our main light source, but this is the cone that is going to emit the light onto your object. So essentially we're working with the cone. This is the point of interest of the cone. You can see this line. And I just have to move this cone around, then decide where I want to illuminate it. Now with the spotlight, you have a lot more options for transform. First, we can move it back or forth just like we could with our point light, but we also have some options for rotations. So open this up, go to transform. The first thing is the point of interest, which we talked about. I can have it set on maybe a certain part of my composition and have this spotlight focus onto that point. So you can use X, Y, and Z to work with this spotlight. You can also click and drag it and choose a different spot. I'm gonna put mine right here. Next, we have the position of the spotlight. Again, we have X, Y, and Z. This is pretty similar to our point light. But now we get the rotate options that we also have for other 3D objects. So first we have the orientation for X. Let me zoom out here so we can see. I'm gonna change this into a different color. X, Y, and Z. That's orientation. Then we have more rotation options for X, Y, and Z. Now the difference between orientation and these rotations is that with the other 3 rotations, I can create cycles. So for, let's say I want my orientation X to do 2 cycles, so 2 360 degrees. And I'm going to make a keyframe here, go to the end, try to increase this past 360. As you can see, it doesn't work that way because it keeps going back to 0 after 360 degrees. So with orientation, I cannot really create a cycle for my shape. But with the rotations, I'm going to go on X to the end. I can create maybe 3 cycles, type in 3 or 4 in here, and it's going to spin around 4 times. So you would use orientation to just move and rotate your spotlight in a more limited way, but with the other rotations, you can create big cycles and big changes. All right, so that's the transform options. Let's look at our light options. So most of these guys are similar to our point light, but now we have the option for cone angle and cone feather. So the cone angle is this big circle that you see. When I increase this, I'm going to increase the size. When I decrease it, it's going to be a lot smaller. Basically, this is talking about the spot that will be illuminated. Next, we have the cone feather, which is how soft the edges of this cone angle is. So right now we're on 50%. If I put it on 0, we're going to get this really sharp edge for our spot. Increase it to 100, it's going to be pretty soft. Then below we have the exact same shadow options that we did for the point light. It's not different here, we just have these additional 2 cone options. You can also change the color like we mentioned. Let's make this blue. And now everything is blue. Go back to white. So that was our second light type. In the next lesson, we're going to take a look at the other two types and look at an example where we can use multiple lights at the same time to create a hyper-realistic 3D effect. I'll see you guys in the next lesson.